Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to theCUBE's live coverage of Qlik Connect 2026 here at the Gaylord Palms Resort in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Rebecca Knight, alongside Rob Strechay, the analyst. Rob, what a day it's been.
It's been awesome. I mean, again, where the rubber meets the road and AI and data become real and solve for outcomes, that is the key.
It has, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We've learned a lot. So with that, I would like to welcome our last guest of the show, saving the best for last, Natalie Rhoades, Global Senior Director, Advisory Services at Qlik. Welcome, Natalie.
Thank you so much.
And Randy Mickey, SVP, Global Professional Services at Qlik. Thank you so much. So, I mean, I'm sure you were both watching the keynote this morning where your CEO did a little bingo card of all the buzzwords of Copilot, agentic, outcomes, guardrails. And at the same time, I want to hear your perspectives from this advisory role that you are in and from where you sit in terms of focusing maybe a little too much on the tech.
Yeah.
Randy, why don't you riff on that a little bit and where these things go off the rails a little?
Sure, it's important, but I promise not to talk about data for 10 minutes. So. Very important, but honestly, where Natalie and I come from, it's more balancing that, right, with the business side. The business needs to be the driver, right? So there has to be the whole orchestration. We talked with certain customers around the fact you need to open your aperture and understand that it's even more important to be coordinated and orchestrated across business departments and units when you introduce agentic and AI. And too often with failed projects or failed initiatives, it's too myopic about just the tech and not going back to the business. Not just the outcomes you want in the KPIs, but also really taking into account the structured and orchestrated path, right? So what feeds what to whom, how, when, where. It's just as important with agentic AI as when you go back to ERP, right? The whole thing with systems and business and outcomes. It's a different flavor of that now. But when we talk to people that say, well, geez, I just can't get this off the ground, it's not the funding, it's not the technology, it's that orchestration that's missing. So.
And the workforce too.
100%.
Yeah. And it's the intent, right? So from an advisory services perspective, our objective or our goal with our customers is really just to understand what they're trying to achieve. So just getting to the, what are your strategic objectives? What are the pain points that are preventing you from reaching your goals? What are your goals? What are your expected outcomes? And then we can back into the technology and determine what's going to make the most sense for them. We have an entire platform. It's modular. We can pick and choose what we need to use from a Qlik perspective to support our customers, but it's about ensuring that we get the right use case at the right time and we prioritize that and we take action on that.
Yeah, and I mean, it has to be when you're sitting there advising these clients that, they come to you with a grand vision of what they want to do and they're like, yeah, but this failed. We tried to do this and it failed before. Do you help them just really focus on the scope and try to get those quick wins, or what is really the way you approach this?
Yeah, I'd like to take that one, Randy.
Go for it.
We've taken this back. If you think about 10, 15 years ago when the market shifted and we went more into application development, and it was more about iterating, and you think Scrum teams and Agile and things like that. I mean, we have to do that with AI now. We can't do SDLC as it used to be. Waterfall is not a thing anymore. These are huge projects. We have to think about them in smaller components where we can get some value quicker. So we're really more inclined to take more of an Agile approach and work with our customers on iterating and ensuring that we're getting them something faster, and we focus on speed to value. So how do we get you something that you can use quickly and it'll add value and we can actually quantify that?
And when you see these initiatives stall or even fail, is it because people have been overly focused on the tech itself? I mean, what are some of the most common pitfalls that you've seen organizations?
Sure. That's one of them for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just to an earlier comment, just playoffing that, it's the lack of balance. It's getting too focused on one thing and not taking into account there's governance to be discussed, there's ownership challenges to be discussed. It is truly a workflow discussion as opposed to, hey, if we did this today in our workflow manually and we're going agentic for these reasons and these outcomes, don't just focus on that, focus on the chain, right? The chain of events, because that's where the value is more deeply anyway, and you're going to provide more value, you're going to gain more credibility with who's ever funding this to begin with, and you're going to be able to build on that and snowball from there. I think it's people being too myopic again about just, well, hey, I know that I need an agent to replace this thing we do today for this outcome, and then just being too focused on that one thing or two things instead of the whole workflow and chain. And to Natalie's point, it still fits within the roadmap, right? So it's part of the roadmap, but take it in small chunks. and then build on the success. But if you roadmap it and plan it correctly, one builds off of the other, and the prioritization goes back to the value for the business.
Well, building credibility with the folks funding it, but also the workers that are tasked with implementing it and actually deploying it too.
That's the change management component of it. And
Exactly.
It's so important, and it's often lost on AI. I think that engineers get excited about something, they're given a little bit of funding, they're off and running, but their head's down and they're not really working with the other parts of the organization that are going to be leveraging the tech. And so you're missing out on that change management or communication strategy that candidly, without it, with these AI initiatives, you're going to fail.
So let me ask this question. How does your advisory really, I guess, differ from traditional consulting and what is going on? What is your focus and your kind of North Star from that?
Yeah, so there's a big news release coming out tomorrow, so I'm not gonna have any spoiler alerts today. So tune in tomorrow. But we do have a different approach, and it's really about leveraging AI, right? So even in advising and iterating and being agile, we're leveraging agentic AI to help us be able to support our customers in a more meaningful, faster way, so again, they can get speed to value. That's all they're looking for right now.
I think there's so many questions about how and whether AI is so different, or is it just another workflow, just another tool? And in terms of what you were just describing about communicating and helping engineers be talking to other people and leadership talking about how we're going to be using AI and how it's going to be changing the way we work. How, as industry veterans yourselves, how much would you say this is a real inflection point and a real change in how things have been done? Or, hey guys, this is just another tool that we've got to implement here in our organization?
It's a tough one. I think it's a little bit of both. I hate to slide on the fence here, but again, if we go back, and I'm over 30 years in this industry, I do draw some corollaries, right? And maybe you have seen them too. If you go back to things around cloud, you go to things around hosting, you go to things around ERP when it was introduced, like we talked about earlier, SAP and Oracle. It was this combination of humans needing to embrace the technology, but also work differently and embrace it, right? And embrace that. I think that the whole thing with agentic and AI is similarly, right? It's not here to wipe out a bunch of jobs. It's here to actually make us more productive and efficient and hopefully get better answers downstream. And we heard a lot about that on main stage today with what Qlik's doing. So I think it's a little bit of both to me. I don't think it's just a huge fear factor, right, that everybody has around it, but it's definitely something we need to embrace. So we need to upskill, to Natalie's point, the customer teams and our teams. We need to make sure we're investing in those skills too, because it is a different skill set. So.
Yeah. From my perspective, again, I've been in the business now 20, 25 years. So right when I was, exiting college, I guess, and entering the workforce, the internet, right? Email, the internet. And that was a big thing. And everybody had all this fear that it was going to, completely wipe out all these jobs, and it didn't. I think we're just going to work differently. We're already working smarter with it, and we're going to have more efficiency. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm already using it. The team's already using it.
So let me ask you another question. I think there's the whole idea of creating momentum within, within your organization. We heard it from HelloFresh earlier about how they really looked for the, a scaled back small win to then move forward. How do you see that working for organizations to really create that early momentum about it?
I think that's the only way to do it. We've got to identify what those priorities are. We have to make sure there's ROI attached to it. We have to ensure that it aligns to what the overall organization is seeking to do at the C-suite level, and then we need to go do it. So it's all about taking action, but in small incremental components.
Yeah, that sponsorship, you hit on it, right? You need that sponsorship at the appropriate levels in the organization. To your question earlier about failure points, no offense to people that are doing the really yeoman's work, but if that's the only person you're talking to, you're trying to help somebody be successful with AI, it's probably not the full picture.
So just to follow up on that, I mean, I also asked it, to it was Ed from HelloFresh, right?
Ed Dunker,
I'm like all the names in my head right now, but it's washing through. But I'm like Ed, and I asked Ed. I said, so how did you really focus on some of the KPIs? And it would seem that you would advocate for this as well. I'm sure that it's a business technology partnership, and it's really that business sponsorship. Is that what you see with most of the successful deployments?
Yeah. Yeah, Randy wants me to take this one. Yes, absolutely. From our perspective, if we are unable to walk away from a discussion with our customer around their objectives, their pain points, the outcomes, the measurable KPIs, what is the expected gain, the ROI, then we've failed, right? And that conversation we didn't get what we needed out of it. So the whole intent is to ensure that we call it the 10-step process, but the first 5 steps are really just ensuring we check all those boxes, and KPIs is one of them. If we do not know what success looks like and we can't measure it, we probably shouldn't be doing it. So we stop there, we have the conversation, we ensure something's documented, and then we can hold ourselves at Qlik and our customers accountable to the actual solution and the outcome.
So it's tying it to real business outcomes.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things when a board or a executive leadership team is under pressure to move faster on AI and they're pushing that pressure down to the rest of the organization, what are some of the steps that they might skip that they really shouldn't be skipping, because these are the key?
Yeah, I think just the orchestration that we led with, right? Being aware of the whole chain, right? The whole workflow chain, because we've seen failure points where, again, you're focused on if the KPI is oriented around additional revenue, for example, revenue streams. Sometimes you can get too boxed in your thinking and you don't think about the impacts and the full work stream and workflow. And I think that is a big failure point problem. So.
Yeah, it's all about the agentic delivery lifecycle. We always talk about system development lifecycle, but now we have to think about it more in agentic terms. And so there's an entire concept that, that way we are ensuring that all the operational areas across the organization are, aware and they're applying it. So that's kind of the new thing we're hearing today anyway.
So one of the things that has been a common thread throughout today is sometimes you have to go slow to go fast, especially when it comes to like governance. And I mean, I've been on the IT side. It's been a long time since I've done that, but governance was like a dirty word, and so policy and
it still is.
Yeah. Well, so help us understand, like, how do you help the clients through that and help your customers through that? Because to me, that's one of the big knot holes, because you need it there, especially with this, because that data is your IP.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's non-negotiable, candidly. But I did just get out of a meeting. We were having a session with our executive advisory board, and one of the things we talked about is, you have to consider the risk, and there's certain things, regulatory or otherwise, that you simply cannot do and should not do and should probably stay away from, and you have to be really careful with that. But there's all this other information and data that you can leverage that's at your fingertips that you can move forward with agentic AI and do things with that are not as high risk but can still get you value, help you sell more, reduce operational inefficiencies, et cetera. So there's still opportunity to go fast. You just have to pick and choose where you want to take your risk.
That's what your CEO said. You're closer to agentic than you think, because you have some good data. Yep. What about the peer-to-peer learning that's taking place at events like Qlik Connect? And I'm sure you're also helping facilitate that too in your advisory role. How do you see companies, organizations learning from each other about how to do this?
Yeah, we have common use cases, which is great. So even across certain industries, there's common use cases. So getting them together on that framing and grounding on those use cases is critical, because whether you're in pharma or financial services, et cetera, there are certain common use cases. And we help by saying, okay, let's get grounded in more of the common use cases. Again, to start slow, move fast. Don't start with your most complex if it doesn't have this massive ROI. So getting them together on the steps to take for each of those use cases and understanding what the right methodology, to Natalie's point, she has a great methodology around this with advisory, and it plays very well into agentic as well. So it's a great approach, and I think once the customers calm down and say, okay, it's not that different than what I did before agentic, right? It's just a different way to approach it. So
yeah, and I think I love that, because I think, to me, when you start to look at it, people want to start small, but they're going to have to scale.
Yes.
How do you see, and how do you talk to these customers about preparing for that? Because to me, it's like, I don't want to rip out what I've already put in and then redo it all and then I can scale or something like that.
Yeah.
But I also don't want to incur all the costs up front and things. It's that balance between like performance and speed and, going, quality and all of that.
I think Mike nailed it today on main stage, Mike Capone, our CEO. He said, look, you have all these assets, you've invested time, not just with Qlik, but with your other providers. You don't have to scrap all that, right? You just need to take that into account when you're moving forward and modeling. So that's another great argument for the investment itself. You're not ripping and replacing, you're building and modernizing.
Adding a room, right.
Adding a room, right, exactly. So I think that's the premise that we go off of and say, okay, look, we're not scrapping anything here, right? We're building on top, right? We're moving this to the next level.
Yeah.
And he talked about today about all the Qlik customers that have, potentially 20, 30 years worth of investment. We showed on stage how you can move that to an agentic experience with answers, et cetera. So it's not rip and replace, it's build upon. So.
Yeah, and I just worked with a customer, and this was so exciting for me. They've been a customer over 10 years. They have over 40,000 dashboards they've created in Qlik, and they're able to leverage answers to sit on top of that and just use all that amazing information that's already been collected, validated, verified, trusted, and governed, and they can start to actually leverage it in a very different way and get more efficiencies from it. So we're already seeing ways that you can reuse what's already there or repurpose it and get more value.
Love it.
That is a perfect note to end on. A perfect note to end theCUBE's live coverage of Qlik Connect. Thank you so much, Natalie and Randy.
Thank you.
I'm Rebecca Knight for Rob Strechay. Thank you so much for tuning in to our live coverage of Qlik Connect 2026. Thanks to our fabulous crew, Todd and Anderson and Tony and Andrew and of course Frank. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more on theCUBE, the leader in enterprise tech news and analysis.